Chapter 8, Conclusion. In this final chapter, I am to mention cross-cultural application of the VSI and give an example of what moral actions can be undertaken by industries controlling the VSI expression. This paper will end by a summary of the main argument and conclusions drawn in each previous chapter. Cross-cultural application. From the view of this paper, the VSI seems evident in the Western world, but there may be doubts about how true this material is for the Eastern world. This, of course, does not include the Far East, where many of the violent computer games are manufactured. Japan also has one of the largest professional wrestling circuits outside of the US. The VSI and its expression are as much about exploration and curiosity as they are about what morality curbs. For example, the undeveloped world may not be able to explore the idea of cinematic horror or professional wrestling. This does not mean there could not be other expressions unique to such a culture. In fact, it follows that a different culture with a different morality structure is quite likely to have the VSI expression developed in another way. Action and morality. There are certain checks that remain over some expressions of the VSI. For example, films are given certificates whereby people under that age are not allowed to view the material. Such action is carried forth in film and TV by companies like the British Board of Film Classification, BBFC, or ITC. One must also remember that religious morality does openly reject the supernatural thrillers that are the most recent generation of horror movies. Conclusions. From Chapter 1. What psychological support is there for the existence of the VSI as a motivational force in human behaviour? The VSI is an offshoot of an ancient primary drive. The VSI has its original expression in hunting for food and the protection drive. The VSI is enjoyable to gratify so that it could become a habit for a survival technique. Chapter 2, from Chapter 2. How has history and culture shaped and moulded the VSI and its expression? The VSI is curbed by the morality of the time, so expression is acceptable. The VSI has had historic expressions like the Roman gladiators. The most acceptable expression is sport, a competitive expression of violence, but one controlled by rules. The main expressions of the VSI in the West are sport, cinematic horror and violent video games. From Chapter 3. How does symbolism allow us to satisfy the VSI? We understand meaning through symbols, but need rules to govern the unilateral understanding, done by commentators in pro wrestling. The VSI is gratified through interpretation of symbolism that challenges societal and religious morality on violence. Foucault and Nietzsche suggest that understanding the symbols can gratify the VSI, allowing escapism by breaking the codes of morality in society. From Chapter 4. What are the main properties needed to gratify the VSI? Gratifying the VSI allows a climactic experience known as the rush, high, or thrill. Factors for VSI gratification include excitement, risk, danger, eroticism, curiosity, and exploration. The rush is addictive and pushes for larger climactic experiences to satisfy the VSI. Professional wrestling is a morality play of good versus evil and includes themes of submission, dominance, humiliation, and violence. Professional wrestling is not a sport. Professional wrestling can be considered more morally acceptable due to its choreography. The VSI is affected by the style of presentation of masculinity in sports entertainment. Professional wrestling demonstrates Nietzsche's power discourse ideology by reversing the chains of power against authority in some cases. The watcher may not be satisfied by watching and may want to partake in mock dangerous sports. From Chapter 5, is the VSI cathartic vent? The hostility catharsis and the frustration aggression model state that satisfying the VSI may be a cathartic vent. There is not enough evidence to establish whether VSI expressions are cathartic or not. From Chapter 6, is there a particular VSI type, and what would it look like? The Myers-Briggs and Enneagram show characteristic dispositions to displaying the VSI, including obsession, the extreme J-pole, imagination and fantasy, and possibly being extrovert. Zuckerman discovered the thrill sensation seeker who may risk physical danger during VSI gratification. From Chapter 7, what might the moral implications of the VSI be for society? Society is hypocritical by suppressing violence but applauding the myth of redemptive violence and patriotism. The end.